In West Texas, the riverbeds are dry for a reason, but at night, they're never truly empty. Footsteps echo where no one walks, shadows move where no one stands, and the past refuses to stay buried. These are three true and terrifying experiences campers had near Texas dry riverbeds. The river that wasn't empty. People think dry riverbeds are safe places to camp. Flat ground. Clear sight lines. No sudden flooding if the forecast looks good. That's what I thought too, until I learned that just because a river isn't moving, doesn't mean it's empty. I was camping alone near the Devil's River watershed in West Texas, a few miles off any marked trail. I'd done this dozens of times before. I liked the isolation. No campgrounds. No RV noise. Just me, my tent, and a stretch of land most people avoided because it looked lifeless. The riverbed had been dry for years. Cracked mud, smooth stones, old driftwood bleached white by the sun. Mesquite trees leaned inward like they were trying to hide something. The air was hot during the day and sharp at night, the kind that carries sound farther than it should. I arrived late afternoon and set my camp right in the center of the riverbed. That should have been my first warning. Locals never camped there. They always chose the banks, higher ground. I thought it was just caution. I didn't know it was habit. As the sun went down, the temperature dropped fast. The wind died completely. No insects. No birds. The kind of quiet that feels heavy instead of peaceful. That night, I cooked dinner over a small stove and watched the stars come out. Everything felt normal. Familiar. I remember thinking how exposed the sky felt out there, like the darkness was wider than usual. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Not close. Not right next to me. Far down the riverbed, maybe 100 yards away. Slow. Careful. Bare feet on stone. I sat up and listened. The footsteps stopped the moment I stopped moving. I told myself it was an animal. Coyotes sometimes walk the riverbeds. Deer too. But animals don't stop when you stop breathing. They don't wait. I stayed still for a long time. The sound didn't come back. Eventually, I laid down and convinced myself I'd imagined it. I didn't sleep much. Just before dawn, I woke up to the sound of water. Not rushing. Not flowing. Just movement. A soft sloshing sound, like someone walking through shallow water. I sat straight up. The riverbed was bone dry. I could see the ground clearly in the moonlight. No puddles. No moisture. No explanation for the sound. It was coming from behind my tent. I slowly unzipped the flap and looked out. Nothing. The riverbed stretched empty in both directions. Pale stones. Dry cracks. The same landscape I'd seen all evening. But the sound continued, circling the campsite, moving just out of sight. I called out, "Hello?" The sound stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It felt like something had leaned in closer. I packed up at first light and told myself I'd leave after breakfast. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to understand what I'd heard. I followed the riverbed upstream. About half a mile away, I found footprints. Bare human footprints pressed into the dust between stones. They weren't fresh. The edges were softened, like they'd been there a while. But they were clear enough to see toe marks. Heel impressions. A walking pattern. They led deeper into the riverbed. I followed them for longer than I should have. The tracks didn't stay consistent. Sometimes they were deep, sometimes barely visible. Sometimes they stopped altogether, then reappeared several yards ahead, as if whoever made them had lifted off the ground. Eventually, they led to a wide bend in the riverbed where the ground dipped lower. That's where I saw the dark patch. It looked like wet mud. The only wet ground anywhere in sight. I approached cautiously. The soil there was darker, smoother, almost polished. When I touched it, my fingers came away damp. Cold. Water began to seep up around my boots. Slowly. Quietly. No source. No flow. Just rising. I stepped back quickly. The seepage stopped. The ground dried almost instantly. That's when I noticed the smell. Rot. Not plant rot. Something heavier. Metallic. Like old blood soaked into stone. I left immediately. By the time I reached my camp, my tent was gone. Not collapsed. Not blown away. Gone. No stakes. No gear. No backpack. No sleeping bag. Just an empty circle in the dust where it had been. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to understand how someone could remove everything without leaving tracks. The only footprints around were mine, and more of the same bare prints I'd followed earlier. They were closer now. Encircling the campsite. I didn't wait. I grabbed what little I had on me and started walking toward the trailhead. It was 6 miles away. I didn't care. As I walked, the riverbed changed. The stones grew smoother. The ground darker. The air heavier. And then, behind me, I heard the water again. This time, it wasn't subtle. I turned around. The riverbed behind me was filling. Not flooding. Not rushing. Rising. Water pooled around stones, then climbed over them. Silent. Controlled. Like it was being poured from beneath the ground. Shapes moved under the surface. Long, thin. Human-shaped but distorted, as if seen through warped glass. I ran. The sound of water followed me, staying just far enough behind that I could hear it but never see it fully. The ground beneath my feet stayed dry, but I could feel the cold radiating up through my boots. I didn't stop until I reached the dirt road at the edge of the watershed. The moment my foot hit the gravel, the sound stopped. I turned back. The riverbed was dry again. Empty. Like nothing had happened. I reported the incident to a local ranger station later that day. The ranger didn't ask many questions. Just nodded and asked exactly where I'd camped. When I told him, his expression changed. "That area floods," he said. I told him it hadn't rained in weeks. He nodded again. "It floods without rain," he said. "We don't list it as a camping zone anymore." I asked him why. He didn't answer directly. He just said, "They used to dump bodies there a long time ago. The river remembers paths water once took." I haven't camped in a dry riverbed since. And sometimes, when I drive past one at night, I swear I hear water moving where there shouldn't be any. Waiting. The woman who sat by the fire. People in rural Texas don't call them dry riverbeds. They call them waiting rivers. Because everyone who's lived near one long enough knows the water always comes back eventually. And some things come back with it. This happened to me in the fall, outside a nearly abandoned farming town south of San Angelo, where the Concho River thins into nothing but cracked earth and stone. I was camping alone, something I'd done dozens of times before. I wasn't chasing fear. I just needed space. No service, no noise, no people. The riverbed was wide and flat, bordered by mesquite trees and low bluffs. You could tell water hadn't flowed there in years, but the ground still dipped like it remembered where the river used to be. I set my tent about 20 yards from the center of the bed and built a small fire as the sun went down. Nothing unusual. No strange feelings. No sounds except insects and the wind brushing dry grass. Around 9 p.m., I heard footsteps. Not close. Far away. Slow. Careful. I stood and shined my flashlight down the riverbed. The beam stretched far, catching dust and stones, but no one was there. I assumed it was an animal. Deer passed through there sometimes. I sat back down. A few minutes later, the footsteps returned. This time closer. The sound wasn't rushed. Whoever, or whatever, it was, walked like they knew exactly where they were going. I called out, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped immediately. No response. I waited. The fire popped softly. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. Then I saw her. She stood just beyond the firelight, maybe 10 feet away, right where the riverbed dipped lower. She was facing me but not moving. Her clothes looked old-fashioned in a plain way, long skirt, light-colored blouse. Nothing dramatic. Nothing ghostly. She looked normal. I assumed she was a local who'd wandered too close to my camp. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You all right?" She didn't answer. She stepped forward and sat on a flat stone near the fire. The firelight hit her face. That's when I noticed something wrong. Her skin looked pale, but not sickly. Just drained. Like color had been gently erased. Her eyes reflected the firelight but didn't blink. Not once. I asked her name. She tilted her head slightly and said, very quietly, "The river hasn't come back yet." Her voice was clear. Calm. No echo. No distortion. I nodded, unsure what else to do. "Yeah. Been dry a long time." She stared into the fire. "My husband said it would return," she said. "He said the river always remembers." Something about the way she spoke felt rehearsed. Like lines memorized long ago. I asked where she came from. She didn't answer that question. Instead, she asked me, "Did you see the house?" "There's no house around here," I said. She frowned. Not angrily. Confused. Then she looked past me, toward the dark bluffs. "It was right there," she said. "Before the flood." A cold wave went through me. There hadn't been a flood there in decades. I knew that. Everyone did. I stood slowly and told her I needed to get something from my truck. I expected her to stop me. Or follow. She didn't move. As I walked backward toward my tent, the firelight flickered. For just a moment, her face seemed wrong. Not decayed. Just slightly out of focus, like she didn't belong fully in the light. I grabbed my keys and shined my flashlight back toward the fire. She was gone. No sound. No footsteps. No disturbance in the dirt where she'd been sitting. I packed up in under 5 minutes. I didn't sleep there. I didn't even put the fire out properly. I just left. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I stopped at a small diner in town and asked an old man behind the counter if there had ever been a house near that stretch of the riverbed. He didn't ask where I'd heard that. He just nodded slowly. "Swept away in '36, he said. "Flash flood. Took a man and his wife. Folks say she never left. Still waits for the river to come back." I didn't ask anything else. I've camped many places since then. But I don't camp near dry riverbeds anymore. Because some ghosts don't scream. Some just sit quietly by the fire, waiting for something that never returned. The footprints that filled with water. I grew up in West Texas, and if there's one thing you learn early, it's respect for dry riverbeds. Not because of animals. Not because of flash floods. But because those places don't feel empty, even when they are. This happened when I was 32. I was working pipeline inspection contracts and staying temporarily near a forgotten stretch of land outside Del Rio, close to where the San Felipe Creek narrows and disappears into cracked earth. Locals still called it a river, even though it hadn't flowed properly in years. I decided to camp there one weekend. It was cheap land, quiet, and close enough to town if something went wrong. I wasn't looking for a thrill. I wanted silence. The riverbed was wide, pale, and smooth in places, broken by stones and dried reeds. You could see old water lines carved into the banks, like scars. I set my tent on slightly higher ground, but still close enough to hear the wind move through the channel at night. That first evening was normal. No strange sounds. No bad feelings. Coyotes howled in the distance, and the sky burned orange as the sun dropped behind the hills. Around midnight, I woke up needing water. That's when I noticed the sound. It wasn't loud. It was rhythmic. Slow. Wet. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I sat up in my tent and realized the sound was coming from the riverbed itself. It sounded like someone walking through shallow water. That made no sense. The riverbed was completely dry. I unzipped the tent slightly and shined my flashlight toward the channel. The beam cut across cracked mud and stones. Nothing moved. The sound stopped. I told myself it was wind shifting loose debris. I lay back down, heart still racing, and eventually fell asleep. In the morning, I saw the footprints. They ran along the riverbed, parallel to my campsite. Bare feet. Adult-sized. Clear impressions in the dust. What made my stomach drop was the moisture. Each footprint was dark, as if pressed into damp ground, even though everything around them was bone-dry. I knelt down and touched one. The soil was cold. Cold like it had just been underwater. The prints stopped abruptly about 20 feet from my tent. No turning away. No fading. Just ended. I packed up and left that morning, unsettled but trying to rationalize it. Maybe someone else had been there. Maybe groundwater seepage. Maybe my mind was connecting dots that weren't there. 2 weeks later, work brought me back to the area. Against my better judgment, I camped there again. The second night was worse. Around 2 a.m., the temperature dropped suddenly. Not gradually. Suddenly. Like a door opening somewhere deep underground. The air became damp, heavy, carrying a smell I recognized instantly. River water. I sat up, listening. Then I heard it again. Footsteps. This time, closer. They moved slowly up the riverbed toward my camp. Each step made a soft splash sound, like shallow water being disturbed. I unzipped my tent and looked out. The riverbed was still dry. But the footprints were forming as I watched. One by one, impressions appeared in the dust, filling with dark moisture the moment they pressed down. I followed them with my flashlight beam until it reached the edge of my camp. Then they stopped. I couldn't see anyone. No legs. No shadow. Just the prints. The smell of water grew stronger, mixed with something else. Old metal. Rust. Rotting wood. I whispered, "Who's there?" The ground answered. Water began to rise inside the footprints. Not flooding. Not flowing. Just standing, filling each impression like a memory replaying itself. Then a voice came from behind me. "You're standing in it." I spun around. A man stood just beyond the fire pit, half lit by dying embers. He wore work clothes that looked decades old. Denim soaked dark at the cuffs. A jacket clinging to his shoulders like it was still heavy with water. His face was pale, lips bluish, eyes unfocused. I couldn't move. "The river doesn't forget," he said. "Even when it leaves." I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He took a step forward. The ground beneath his foot darkened instantly. "I died here," he continued calmly. "When the water came back too fast. The air grew colder. My breath fogged." Behind him, I saw it, not water exactly, but the shape of it. The outline of a river overlaying the dry land, shimmering faintly, as if 2 moments in time were occupying the same space. "I walk it," he said. "Every night. Same path. Same steps. I found my voice enough to whisper, "Why me?" He looked confused by the question. "You camped where the current ran." Then he stepped backward. The footprints began to fade, drying instantly. The smell vanished. The air warmed. And he was gone. I didn't sleep. At sunrise, I drove straight to town and asked about flooding history. An old woman at the local historical office nodded when I described the location. "Flash flood in the 40s, she said. Workers repairing irrigation channels. One man never made it out. Body was found miles downstream." I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't need to. Some places don't move on when the water leaves. They just wait. And at night, when everything is quiet enough, the river walks itself again. That was tonight's Whisper from the Shadows. Subscribe to Nightbound Whispers. And remember, the night is never truly silent.